Yo, what's going on, guys? I'm JJ, and I'm going to be going over my thoughts on this past offseason for the Boston Celtics, as well as what the 2026-27 season will look like for them. And without further ado, let's get started. So first off, I never really addressed the Celtics offseason moves on my channel, so I'm going to address the positives before I get into the negative. Firstly, I'm a fan of the Mitchell Robinson signing. I assume Robinson wins the starting job, but either way, I have more trust in the duo of Kata and Robinson than with Kata and Garza. As much as I hate to say it, because I love the passion that Garza brought every night, he's just not a guy that a team that considers themselves a championship contender should be giving consistent minutes to. Robinson is similar to Kata, so the Celtics shouldn't have to change the offense much, if at all, depending on who's in the game, unlike if they had decided to keep Vucevic around. I also like that they locked up Ron Harper Jr. to a pretty team-friendly deal, even if he went to school at Rutgers. I think the Celtics draft selections of Chris Sinac Jr. and Dylan Mitchell were pretty great, and could be very critical pieces of the Celtics in the near future, especially Sinac. I could see Sinac playing the power forward spot, or even being a center with a bit more development time. And Dylan Mitchell seems primed to take the spot of a guy like Jordan Walsh. Their skill sets are similar, but Mitchell has team control on his side, whereas Walsh is a free agent. Never mind, he just signed a 3-year deal. Alright, time for the negative. I know I'm not treading new ground with this, but the Jaylen Brown trade was a massive L in just about every aspect. Brad Stevens tried citing cap space concerns with all this, which is just hilarious considering PG's only making around $3 million less than Brown this season. The only thing that could redeem this trade ever so slightly is the mega conditioned pick swap the Celtics received as a part of the trade. To put it briefly, the Celtics get the best of either the Sixers or LA Clippers first rounders in 2028. Assuming they get the Clippers first round pick, it could be decently high up. However, even if it ends up being the number 1 overall pick in 2028, the chances of finding a guy that equates to JB's talent is next to 0. So to break it down, they actively got worse as a team, the cap space they gained this year was used to sign Mike Conley of all people, and you're relying on the Clippers being awful in order to make the return worth half a damn. The Celtics lost this trade no matter what lens you look at it from, and that's before mentioning they sent them to a division rival who just so happened to beat you in the playoffs. Never has a general manager's reputation been so damaged so quickly just off one trade. Oh, and one last thing before I get to my season predictions. No, the Celtics should not sign Bradley Beal. If they wanted scoring off the bench, they would have just brought Anthony Simons back, who, wouldn't you know it, also joined the 76ers. The Celtics don't need another washed bum to play with the washed bum they received in the Jaylen Brown trade. I don't want Bradley Beal anywhere near this team. I don't care if Bradley Beal managed to sign for $1. Even that would be a waste. I'd rather go skydiving without a parachute than watch Bradley Beal in the year of our Lord 2026. Whew, now that that's out of the way, I'm going to talk about my expectations for the 2026-27 Boston Celtics. Remember when everyone, including me, said the Celtics were going to have their worst season in the last decade, and then they won 56 games and were second in the East? Well, now I think this will actually be the worst season the Celtics have had in the last decade. However, there are 3 main questions that need to be answered to decide the season the C's are going to have. This is the worst supporting cast the Celtics have had in a while, dare I say since Tatum's rookie year when Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward were injured. It's also the first time he hasn't been a part of a 1A, 1B situation with Jaylen Brown. For what it's worth, he's definitely a better facilitator than Brown, although it's sometimes to his detriment. If Tatum can be a facilitator on offense while still scoring at a good clip, that's the best case scenario. However, we're trusting a guy that tore his Achilles a little over a year ago to get back to being the player he was before the injury. Obviously, it's a concern, but I think Tatum could do that, given the short sample size of last season. Derek White had his worst full season in Boston last year based on his percentages. I do think that him being asked to facilitate the offense was part of the reason. Unfortunately, he's just not good enough as a playmaker to justify the downturn in his shooting numbers this past year. His defense is just as good as it's ever been, but White's shooting slumps in games 1 through 6 of the playoffs against the Sixers is a huge part of the reason the Celtics let Philly come back. By the time he finally got a shot back in Game 7, it was too little too late. Derek White needs to get back to being the catch-and-shoot threat that he was in the previous 3 seasons in Boston, or else it could mean the end of his Celtics tenure. I, like a lot of other people, chuckled to myself when reports came out that the Celtics believed Peyton Pritchard could take a quote-unquote Jalen Brunson-type leap in production this upcoming year. Simply put, I don't believe Pritchard has that in him. If he was going to take that leap in production, he would have done it last year when he was a starting point guard for half of it. However, he was as consistent as an abstract painting game by game before getting moved back to the 6-man role. He wouldn't have been pushed back to the 6-man role if he was truly that good as a player. Unfortunately, I think Pritchard has reached his ceiling of what his potential is as a player. Too good for the bench, not good enough to start. All in all, my expectations for this year's squad is the same expectations I had for last year's squad. I would say the Celtics place top 4 in the East, but it wouldn't surprise me if they were another first round exit. My assumption is that the starting five for next year will be Pritchard, White, George, Tatum, and Robinson. Not that I want PG 13% in the lineup, but I assume he'll be in there. I'd rather have Baylor Shireman or Hugo Gonzalez or even Walsh. I'd almost rather Dylan Mitchell start at the 3 or move Tatum to small forward and play Kristanak at the 4. However, they might still be too raw at the moment. Maybe with some games in Maine, they'll be ready. All in all, my official prediction for the Celtics win total in 2026-27 will be 48 wins and 34 losses. If you enjoyed the video, please like and consider subscribing to the channel. I'm planning on doing more long-form videos like this in the future. Every video I made on my channel, including this one, has been scripted, recorded, and edited by me and me alone without the use of AI. So if that appeals to you and you like the content, feel free to subscribe, or not, whatever, I'm not your dad. With that being said, I'm JJ, and I'm gone.